It's kind of hard to describe This Day's End to people who weren't there.
I'd say probably the last little glimmer of light in the 541 music scene, honestly. That's what I would say This Day's End was to me.
I still bump into people who are like, hey, have you heard about this band? See, I got the CD from my friend of the show, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm 1/4 of that, right? Google that shit right now.
You start this thing in the 6th grade and you watch it grow from your friends coming out to see you in your backyard, playing at the school graduation, opening for Thrice at the WOW Hall, opening the Warp Tour in Portland.
EPD was an established band, and then the same guys came back completely as a new band. God, it was just a 180-degree change.
I like EPD. I like shitty pop punk, always have, probably always will. And this was totally different.
We changed the way that we wrote songs pretty significantly. It was somewhat schizophrenic, but the fact that we all would sit down and write a song together made it feel much more cohesive.
Guy would bring an idea and the 4 of us in one room would flush that out and make it something else, something unique. So you're getting all these different influences wrapped into one song.
Some of the hardcore we were listening to, or metal, was, technically as players appealing to us, and I think that's kind of what also took us in the direction of finally committing to where we wanted to go.
Through the years of playing, they were actually kind of, clearly being exposed to different bands, different people, different ideas, and these things didn't really seem to affect them all the same.
The sound was really unique. I remember just being blown away by the musicianship. The riffs were really good, they sang good. I mean, they were way better than we were in a lot of ways, obviously, except for the partying. I mean, they were just solid, and they were unique, and we all thought that they were going to be huge.
There's nothing even similar to the style of music you guys play at all. This collaborative effort of opening up everything that's out there and deciding to put it all into one thing.
I think the band was significant. I think their sound was significant, and their record was really well done. The guitar work from Cross and Sam together, the different harmonies and things that they were able to pull off was really interesting. And you had 3 guys that could sing.
We had 3 lead singers now. We had constant time changes and dynamic shifts and twists in genre.
It is hard though to kind of put just like even into a few words. I don't know.
Hardcore, punk, metal, fusion, jazz mix.
Every type of music I've ever listened to crammed into a band, which is exactly what we were trying to do with TDE.
It seemed like the cool thing was just to kind of finding your niche and just be the best in that thing. But these guys were, I think, kind of musically unsettled. The end product was always really interesting because you never really knew what was going to happen around the next corner.
Instead of just playing the same type of songs and the same type of structure too, we were listening to music that was more complex than that.
We kind of put punk rock in the rear view. We were tired of being pigeonholed. That's why we did it.
As far as I was concerned, they were these very talented, angry kids. But it was, gimmicky, catchy. That's sort of what I was into at the time as well.
I think we were kind of seen as just another teenage punk band, and we kind of felt that way. With This Day's End, we were concerned with making a clean break, which is why we chose that name.
And I think somebody said This Day's End was a new beginning, and my God, it was. All of a sudden the band came out, and it wasn't a punk rock band anymore.
The best thing about it was that at least the evolution of the band coming out of EPD was a very unique change to see, not only my friends who were doing it, but as artists, going from this just straight up punk rock sort of style to something very much more mature. and definitely touching on subjects that were very personal to a lot of people.
I never said something with so much conviction that I'm not talking about doing my work. Never said something so unbelievable and believed it. I never said something and truly meant it. So now you're lucky you're already dead. I would kill you myself.
I thought about the writing and the lyrics and how deep some of the lyrics were compared to, If Grass Could Scream and things like that. I mean, this was a very mature album.
More mature in a songwriting sense, and almost a showmanship sense. I mean, it was still about having fun, but less about just having fun and playing music, but more about being a band.
To see the evolution in such a short amount of time, all in one record, is pretty remarkable. Going from the hardcore punk songs that we wrote with EPD to implementing different time signatures and musical influences to create the apex.
And we spent a year writing these songs, working it out, and going, this is going to be the best album of our lives. And we actually went to Seattle and did a week or 2 weeks of pre-production sessions just to record everything and then have it to listen to and take notes on and refine and really build.
To get to just record all day long. That's a dream. I loved it. And with all my best friends, that's amazing. And at Eric's house, and in Seattle, it just couldn't have been better.
It proved that no matter what, you can achieve anything you need to. I would sacrifice limbs, fingers.
It'll show no matter what, even if it isn't going to be the next, huge record. That record, you can hear all the hard work that went into it. But because the album sounds great and it makes you feel that time period, it's I don't know, nothing can top that.
Pretty much I had a smile on my face the first time I ever heard it. Just probably the same one that I had when I listened to Illusions of Safety.
There's so much more that was going on in that album than I even noticed when I was younger. Because when I was younger, I was just so stoked to hear my friends making this super passionate music that was really, really good. And now, I can hear all the intricacies in the recording and, all the layers that was going on in it.
It was also really the pinnacle moment of our work with Eric Munch. And I've worked with him for another 10 years since. I learned how to record and edit, and I got my equipment during that session, making that album. That's when Take 92 was conceived.
Yeah, it still holds up. Definitely. It's at the same time, it's very indicative of that time period.
As soon as you hear it, you remember everything that was happening back then, and all the shows and just how tight that community was then. That's sort of what that reminds me of. That album reminds me of that time.
Going back and re-listening to it, you have almost a renewed sense of appreciation for what you had at that time. I would say I'm pretty fortunate. Really kind of a profound time for me, I think.
It's really nice to think back on that time and to think about how well we all worked together and how, everybody wanted everyone else to succeed. And I miss it. It was pretty great.
I long for that time in the music scene again. I want to see all those bands and all those people around.
And so thinking about this record and the show kind of takes me back to that, and it's nice. It's a time I don't think we're ever going to get back.
I still have it. I still listen to it. I still listen to a lot of old albums. It just reminds me of the good old days. I miss it so much, It was a good time.
I still listen to this shit. I don't feel guilty listening to my own music anymore. I used to when we were younger, but now I don't. Honestly, it's good. It's good music.
This still is just really good. I mean, aside from Crosby's whiny songs about girls, it just really was good. I would put that release against anything that has come out since in terms of that style of music.
I still listen to it start to finish. I don't listen to 2 or 3 songs and take it out. I listen to the entire album. God, it was awesome. that feeling of like, this is the same kids that I've known forever, and this is what they've become. Holy fuck.
I guess it means as much as it did back when it was released, just because of how powerful of an album it still is.
I do think it's cool that people still care about it. If that's so, then that makes me feel fantastic. It really does. Because then, you know, as a musician, I feel like I did my job. I got to convey myself and more with my friends through music. The greatest thing that I've ever found in my life.
To me, and I think to a lot of people, it was all about the live show.
We had gone from basement shows to headlining the WOW Hall, and that CD release show was phenomenal. I mean, we packed more than 300 people into that room, and they're singing our fucking words back. It's just, it's amazing. I can't describe the feeling.
There's like, what, 400 people there that night? Yeah, it was packed. Yeah, that was a great night.
Like, as soon as it began, all of our friends were there more. There were that many people. I mean, it's like elbow to elbow, and like, you knew so many people. It was great. It was fantastic.
The show was great just because of all the energy and the community of people, you know, at the time, playing music together and doing it all for the right reasons.
I remember the crowd being really into it, really responding to the new songs and the new sound. It was pretty cool, you know, to see a local band evolve like that.
That show was so good. Everybody was just on top of it. Everybody was stoked to see those songs live and to see you guys play. At least in my life, it went down as one of the best shows I've seen, especially at the WOW Hall.
It's definitely cool to have been a part of it. I played bass on their opening song at the CD release show, which was awesome.
All I could focus on was how much fun like that night was going to be. And going all out with like combining our gear with 5 Good Reasons and just having like a wall of amps behind us was awesome. That's something I was really excited for. I thought it was awesome live. It just sounded huge.
Impressively loud. It was the first time I had seen, you know, a local band with that much gear on stage. It was pretty awesome.
You know, it was like going to a professional band that had been doing this for 35 years. Watching the interaction of all the guys together, and it was just so energetic and fun. And there's never been another band in the Eugene area, in my opinion, with that kind of energy and that kind of excitement in their shows.
We actually sold quite a few records, and we made a decent amount of money that day for us, which to me kind of boggled my mind that there were that many people willing to spend that much money on what we were doing. And it was really nice to see that people were invested in us.
The bands didn't make a lot of money, but we had been on tour and we came down and played. This Day's End, Sam, those guys gave us their money that they had earned that night and gave it to us for tour. And I just remember feeling so touched that they had did that, and I just is a testament to how good the dudes were.
It's still relevant. I still hear music to this day where I'm like, oh wow, that would fit in TDE. Like that is what TDE would probably do right now.
It's been a staple in my musical influence ever since its release, not only because of the different genres it encompasses, but these are some of my best friends doing this. Something that I've always wanted to do musically.
The guys that I grew up with and shared years and years, my entire adolescence were spent with these 4 dudes, Chase, Chris, Cross, and for a while Ben. That album is that milestone for all of our accomplishments musically thus far.
The full-length record was certainly a milestone. It still, to me, is the one thing that's very representative of that period of my life.
It really was a snapshot of a really great time in my life. I still think I should be somewhere more... I should be in a better place as a musician, I feel like.
It wasn't until I found hip-hop that I reinvented what I wanted to do musically, because This Day's End was so significant that I couldn't even work in rock music anymore, and compared to that, it was just that powerful to me.
It felt a lot of the time like the local scene was kind of built around This Day's End, and I think especially around Sam. He kind of took on a leadership role, and I think it was kind of sad to see when This Day's End stopped playing. It seemed like no one really stood up and filled that role.
I was booking the shows, and I felt like the scene kind of went into a tailspin. We were getting some great bands coming through and playing, but I felt like people started to care less.
It was less interest in going to see music and playing music. I mean, it's the same for me. It was less interest in playing music for me at that point.
I mean, it definitely affected me. I don't know, it was the same thing with like Countdown to Life. Like the music itself and the content inside of it was so raw and so personal.
It hit at the right time, and it was something that was fresh and new, and I don't know, it was just a spark of electricity that really got under people's skin. You know, just like Countdown to Life, you know, and everything coming out around the same time.
Our shows were pretty rowdy and pretty great, but as soon as they came, they were just like, yeah, you guys could take these shows and just do this to it. Let's be kicking over amps and throwing each other around. How about that?
They showed us the way.
Oh man, oh yeah, it was the gospel.
I remember booking Countdown to Life, and they influenced us. I was in a hardcore band called Outreach, and they influenced us, and Chase was in a hardcore band called Dead Even. They were willing to grow with us. It felt good knowing that we had gone from being on the outskirts of this thing to really kind of building our own scene.
We really wanted to be inclusive. We knew what it was like to be left out. When you get approached by kids and, you know, they would be like nervous to talk to you, it shows me, oh my God, so what, you know, how do we like book shows? I'm like, I don't know, we have one in a month. Do you want to open it?
They spawned an entire movement in Eugene. They brought the kids out to the shows, and those kids started bands. And I think there's a lot of bands in Eugene that never would have existed had This Day's End never existed.
That's how bands are made, you know. They see a band that they really enjoy, and they influence them a bunch. And the same thing happened with me. You know, I watched you guys, and I saw the energy you guys portrayed, and you know, the power and emotion that you guys put behind your music, and it set the bar for a lot of people, I think, including myself.
I always saw that encouragement too. People were like, you know, oh man, you know, like my little brother started playing guitar because of you, and it's like, oh, that's weird, but great. You know, like I don't know how to take that. That's cool.
When I was doing Take 92, the bands that were coming in that I was recording were saying, oh man, I used to love going to your shows.
I think what it did was it showed everybody it's okay to play heavy music. And it's okay to play musical heavy music. For bands that came up later, it was easier to be accepted because they had already seen it and they knew, okay, this works.
Back then, music actually meant something to kids, and it wasn't just a popularity contest. People were actually, playing with passion and breaking strings, so to speak.
If it hadn't been for This Day's End, I honestly don't think that 5 Good Reasons would have been able to find the heart to continue playing. Those shows that we played in Eugene and the friendship that we made with This Day's End were really powerful. And I think that the dudes in This Day's End deserve all of the credit for helping us get to that point. And really just excellent time in my life, and they deserve a lot of thanks for that. Thanks, guys.
It's funny because a lot of people, when I tell them I was in a punk rock band or a hardcore band, they at first usually don't believe me. And I'll play the record for them, and that's me on the opening track screaming, and they always seem to be quite shocked.
I want to do a release show, like a 10-year anniversary, just one show. I mean, we could practice for a month and have it down.
Tell me about it. This shit is on my Thank you guys so much for putting me on the crowd for our CD release.
Come on, baby, devastate me.
Maybe someday we'll have a 20-year release show when we're all fat and bald. I think Sam is already there, though.
Sammy, I don't know what you want me to say. It's not my favorite record. I didn't love the yelling. I probably told these guys from day one, you know, you're a great band, you're very, 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 very talented. Not so much with the yelling. I don't love the yelling.
I do listen to Sam's hip-hop music because the Facebooks. And definitely This Day's End is better.